Hi everyone. It's already 6 p.m. West African time and 1 o'clock EST. So we're going to start the event now, and we'll start with an opening speech from me. Good day, distinguished guests, esteemed partners, youth leaders, and advocates. I feel honored to welcome everyone to today's virtual side event at the ECOSOC Youth Forum 2025 with the topic Advancing Girls and Women Economic Empowerment for a Sustainable Future. We're here to discuss this crucial topic that surrounds the unequal economic empowerment in the society. I am Temitayo Olatunde, the Executive Director of Temvert Empowerment Foundation, a non-governmental organization that advocates for gender equality and equal access to quality education. We have empowered more than 1,000 school pupils through our empowerment programs. Some of our projects include scholarships, distribution of school materials, and campaigns against menstrual poverty. We strongly believe that every girl and woman must be empowered to break the barriers that emanate from the social construct. When girls and women are economically empowered, the society and world will thrive. This event is made more significant through our partnership with the United Nations Major Group for Children and Youth. We believe that young people, especially young women and girls, are change makers and must not be deprived of the economic empowerment to drive change. This side event will not only discuss the challenges, but also identify the solutions to the challenges faced by women and girls in becoming economically empowered, thereby amplifying our voice for an equitable society. I believe in order to achieve the 2030 sustainable development, we must all act now to ensure that girls and women have equal access to education and natural resources to thrive economically. Thank you. I will also introduce our moderator for today. Her name is Michelle Cafe. Michelle Cafe studied LLB law at the university. I will also introduce our moderator for today. Her name is Michelle Cafe. Michelle Cafe studied LLB law at the University of Bristol and has been recently called to the bar by Middle Temple. She lives in the United Kingdom. Beyond her legal career, she's an education and anti-poverty activist. Michelle's involvement includes serving as a youth leader with the World Bank's Global Partnership for Education and as a youth ambassador for the One campaign. Additionally, she volunteered as a rule of law expertise, volunteer advocate for international development, A4ID, where she actively contributed to strengthening international rule of law by fostering partnerships that provide quality pro bono legal and judicial expertise. Our advocacy for international development is recognized by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as a goalkeeper. Michelle has also gained valuable experience working in the cabinet office as a policy agent. I'm happy to introduce Michelle, who will be moderating our sessions today to you. Michelle, are you there with me?
I am indeed. Thank you so much for the introduction. It's great to be here. It's a pleasure.
All right, over to you, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you. And good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you're staying. Welcome to everyone. I'm so happy to see some faces. You're in for a real treat. Temitayo has put together an amazing panel and excellent speakers. So really look forward to it and dial in. So this is it's gonna be split into two sections. Can you all hear me still? Okay. This presentation is going to be split into two main sections. So the first part of the presentation, we're going to hear from a real privileged speaker, Wafai Samuel, and it's a real privilege to hear her speak and to learn information from her. So I really hope that everyone dials in, takes notes, and if you have any questions, start to think of them now, and then at the right time, you can put them in the chat, and then hear more about Wafai. We also have Amanda Obidike, an amazing woman. So I couldn't think of anyone more well fitted to be part of this discussion. Again, take notes, dial in, and that'll be in the second portion of this presentation. So first, we're gonna go straight to Wafai Samuel. It's amazing that you're here. I'm gonna tell you guys, anyone who doesn't know about Wafai and her work, I'm just gonna give her a little bit of detail about her profile, but there's so much more to her and to her work. So do listen in. Wafai has been profiled by Forbes Africa, and she's been described as shaping the future of the continent, which is just amazing. She's currently the acting director general of the Nigerian American Chamber of Commerce, where she contributes to strengthening the economic collaborations between both countries, so Nigeria and the United States, which is amazing. And she joined the chamber as Director of Communications and Government Relations and Advocacy in 2022. Previously, before that, she was the Director of Communications and External Affairs to the UK Liberia Chamber of Commerce. So another more experience there, which is amazing. As well as the Africa Energy and Infrastructure magazine. She was the head of oil and gas communications to the Foreign Investment Network. And there's so much more, but I'll just say that she's also brokered deals and agreements in so many countries, including, and this is not all of that, but including South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, as we already said, the United States, Italy, so much more, and as well as the United Kingdom, which is where I am. So that's amazing. If you want to know about her academic background, she holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Zoology and Environmental Biology. And an advanced diploma in HR and organizational management from the University of Lagos, represent. She's also been nominated for an honorary doctorate degree in leadership and management from the Commonwealth University of London. I know that was a lot, but I hope you all picked up on the important things and the things that maybe relate to you or that you can aspire to. That might seem like a lot, but that's her life's work, and there's so much more that I'm sure she's gonna be able to share with us than what I've just read. So if there's anything else, please do mention it that you'd love to share it and inspire everybody on this call. But let's just get straight into it because I know your time is valuable. So I'm going to ask just a few questions, and if anybody in the audience has questions, please do feel free to write them in the chat or save them for when that time comes, and then I'd feel happy to ask Wafai some of those questions. Okay, everyone on board? Great. The first question is, Wafai, many women-owned small businesses struggle to access funding, as I'm sure you know. How can the private sector better support women entrepreneurs? This question is so important because this section of the call is about public-private partnerships for women's economic advancement. So please do feel free to unmute and share with us your thoughts on that question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you very much, Tayo, for the platform. Thank you, Michelle, for such an outstanding and excellent moderation. So to respond to your question very directly, like you've mentioned, women encounter several challenges every other time with respect to trade, which is a field that I particularly belong. And going straight to some of the challenges that they encounter is not necessarily, the subject matter on why we're here. I'd like to emphasize more on the solutions. Some of the solutions include, but not limited to, capacity building workshops. So the more learned people are, the more experienced people are, whether in formal or informal education, the more capacity they're able to build, the more they fit into society. So one of the ways we can help women in competing in today's society favorably with respect to getting more involved in trade, services, business, the economy, is building their capacity. When I talk about capacity, I'm talking about learning. It doesn't necessarily have to be a formal education. As you know, majority of the women in the country where I live in, which is Nigeria, contribute phenomenally to the informal sector. So we have at least more than 50% of women who are mostly in the informal sector. And if you look at the GDP of Nigeria, the most income that we make for small-scale businesses are mostly from the informal sector. So automatically, it means that for the informal sector income that we derive in our country and on our continent as Africa, the most are generated by women. So how do women begin to build capacity in informal sectors? Getting trained in different fields. When you talk about fields, you're talking about, fields like sewing, you're talking about fields like farming, you're talking about fields like manufacturing, you're talking about, the service industry. A lot of women work as cleaners and so on and so forth. If you do not build capacities in these sectors, in these fields, it's very difficult to compete favorably. So that's number one. The second way that can enhance their skills and themselves to be able to compete favorably is by giving them access to funding, access to money. So records have it that women are 20 times as more to suffer in getting income, or 20 times as more to be ignored or relegated to the background with respect to accessing finance, loans, and income from banks, as well as multinational organizations, multinational financial organizations, what's the word now? Financial service industry, financial service organizations. So if women are able to access funds, they will be able to grow their businesses. If women are able to grow their businesses, they'll be able to contribute a lot more to the GDP of an economy. They'll be able to contribute a lot more to the family nucleus. They'll be able to contribute a lot more to themselves. The third thing I'd like to emphasize with respect to advancing skills capacity for women to be able to access trade and do well with respect to trade and the economy, I would say, is ensuring that women are equipped with the kind of social skills that they desire. So when I say social skills, for instance, I work in a very male-dominated industry. So the majority of people who work in my industry, for instance, are men. And the majority of people who are hired for labor to take up different roles are usually men. Why do we not segment it in a way that, okay, there is a balance with respect to recruiting, there's a balance with respect to awarding of contracts? So that way, women are able to gain some sort of social skills, knowing fully well that the industries they work in or the services they deliver are not just male-dominated. They can equally play along the margins in that field. Another thing I'd like to say, and this too would be my final point, is people need to take women off from the nucleus where they think, okay, you're doing them a favor because you're helping them. You're doing them a favor because you're giving them a job opportunity. Women have to rise to the challenge to understand that people hire for skills, people hire for, capacity, people hire for value and impact, and not just necessarily because of gender equality. We are following very closely with what is happening in the US, where they are consistently trying to eliminate DEI. And of course, we know what DEI means: diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Republicans have come up with their own, ideologies, with their own mindset, with their own policies that says no DEI hires. They are not for DEI hires. Automatically, what am I saying? If you think because you're a woman, then you should be given a specific role, or you should be given a specific office to occupy, or you should be given a specific contract in the informal sector just to balance gender equity. The world is moving away from that. You need to be able to demonstrate capacity. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can bring impact to the table. You need to be able to demonstrate that you can bring value to whatever it is you're assigned to do or you're given to do. So we need to take women out of that stereotype to make them feel like you're doing them a favor, or they deserve a favor because of the gender they belong. And instead, teach them, train them, and encourage them to show more of skills, more of talent, irrespective of how minute it might seem. And then the final point I would like to establish with respect to how women can compete favorably and advance their art in trade is, as much as you can, attend seminars, workshops like this that inspire and motivate you. There's always something new to learn. So my field is trade. Every other time I take an opportunity to attend webinars, I take an opportunity to attend workshops, I listen to people who have succeeded in those fields, and then I see what I can possibly learn from them and equip myself with it, and then see how I can better myself and try to compete favorably. Don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to request for favors where you can deliver on some jobs, you're competent. And at the end of the day, it might seem like these are very small and insignificant steps, but you're making progress, or making progress collectively in the long run would say that women will be better and better equipped in the societies to fit into the roles that we think are unimaginable. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I love what you just said about it's no longer charity to give money to women, and especially that coupled or contrasted with what you mentioned about women in Nigeria basically fueling the economic system and contributing in so many different ways. It's no longer charity. It's actually for the sake of the global economy to empower women this way. So that's just an amazing answer and really something to think about in the way we not only receive money but give money and finance these different sort of exports and trade. And yeah, just a lot to learn from you in that specific, just in that answer that you just gave even. So thank you for that. Sort of following on from that, what role can the Chamber of Commerce play? So we mentioned, people might not remember, but I mentioned that you were the acting director general of the Nigerian America Chamber of Commerce, and you just mentioned some of the policy going on in the United States. So in light of that, what role do you think the Chamber of Commerce plays in facilitating that sort of public-private partnership that can actually enhance girls' empowerment, women and girls' empowerment?
Okay, thank you very much. So with respect to the Chamber of Commerce, so we are not necessarily focused on, we are not a charity organization. So we are more focused on trade. So I would say that, again, like I did mention, we are focused on capacity, we are focused on value, we are focused on impact, with a bit of a definition for women. So what we do is, when we have jobs, we have contracts, and we need to hire, the Chamber makes it a point of duty to ensure that there's a percentage that is accruable to women. So let's say we have 50 candidates who are applying for a job in our chamber. We ensure that at least 20% of these candidates who will be hired are women. So the first thing we do is, as much as we can, we try to balance the gender equity gap, ensuring that we have women amongst our hires. As you can see, I'm leading the administrative, part of the chamber as the acting director general, and I'm a woman. I took over from someone who was a man. Now, away from that, I would say technically, we try as much as we can to organize a lot of capacity building workshops. So you're as good as the people you know who can introduce you to people who could possibly help you. You don't just sit back in your house, in your environment, and you're expecting to do business and then succeed. So we organize these capacity building workshops for specific, it's called sector and I would say gender specific capacity building workshops, where we bring different women together from various stratas, from category A, B, and C. Category A, I mean women in the upper echelon. Category B, middle class women, and you can refer to them as the MSMEs, and then category B, the SMEs, and then the category C, the MSMEs. The MSMEs are like the micro, medium, small scale enterprises. So most times we organize capacity building workshops where we bring all these women together, and they have an opportunity to hear firsthand from other women who have excelled in their fields. There's one thing or the other they can learn from these women. Sometimes they're directly able to communicate with these women, whereas in a normal setting, they could never really have access to meet with all kinds of women. In a normal setting, they could never really walk into the offices of these women to talk to them. So we organize these capacity building workshops and ensure that these women get to learn, especially the women who are in the MSMEs, that's the micro, small, and medium scale enterprises, meet with people who are like from the large corporates, large scale organizations, and then they interact and see possible areas where there could be of value and service to them. Another thing I'd like to establish on how the chamber supports women. There's an exhibition we have, which is called the African Foods and Products Exhibition. So every year we organize that annually, and it is predominantly dominated by women. In fact, that exhibition was one of the reasons why I said that the majority of Nigeria's the majority of Nigeria's informal sector is women. So we have more than 80% of the exhibitors as women. They come to exhibit what they do, and we have people patronizing them from all over West Africa, all over Africa. They're getting new contracts from people who live in the US, who live in Senegal, different parts of the world, asking them to produce bags, asking them to produce clothes that are made from Ankara, and so on and so forth. These are small businesses, and that's the nucleus of our existence. We try as much as we can to support small businesses. Away from that, I spoke about access to loans, access to funding. We're able to talk with financial organizations. The Bank of Industry is one of them. African Export-Import Bank is one of them. African Development Bank is one of them, but I'm particular about the Bank of Industry. So we talk to the Bank of Industry. What do you need? How can you possibly support the businesses of our women, the businesses of, how can you possibly support female-owned businesses in our chamber? So they give us their rules, they give us their regulations, they give us their the strategy of what they need. They give us the requirements, and then we take them to these female businesses, talk to them to apply for loans, talk to them to apply for some of these opportunities, talk to them to apply for grants, talk to them to apply for, assistance in kind. Assistance in kind could be, as big as 100 sewing machines to as little as, 100 refrigerators to 100 tricycles, to name a few. So we talk to all of these organizations and they see how they could possibly support some of these women-owned businesses. And then two final things I'll mention. One is trade missions. We organize trade missions to the United States of America. When we go with a lot of businesses, sometimes these businesses are not able to fund themselves. We get people to sponsor them, and then they reach the United States. They learn new skills. They get to interact with a new society, a new community, new cultures, and they come back here. And at the end of the day, they're able to expand their businesses. They're able to gain skills, and they're able to gain skills that scale their businesses from the point where they were to the point where they never really imagined they could attain. In summary, I'd like to say that as a Chamber of Commerce, any Chamber of Commerce is positioned to support businesses, whatever kind of business a person is doing. And while I would say that while we're positioned to support businesses, whatever kind of business a person is doing, there's been a bit of emphasis on female-owned businesses looking at the economy. knowing fully well that there's inflation has hit the whole world. We've seen Trump 2.0 with the tariffs that he's placing on Nigeria, 14%. Of course, without a doubt, businesses would suffer. Of course, without a doubt, the fees that have been placed on imports automatically increases. So it is the time where we rise up to the challenges that women face. We give them the kinds of, encouragement that they need and connect them to the right channels, to the right platforms, to the right places, to the right networks that could possibly help them sustain their businesses, that could possibly help them strengthen their businesses. Thank you very much.
That's so much insight into just the economic field in Nigeria, but also in how other countries and other organizations can use what the chamber is doing and actually apply it in their own country context. Because I'm sure we have people listening in from different parts of the world, outside Nigeria, outside Africa in general. And so I think that's really helpful to give people an insight into actually what can we do outside of just charity? What can we do to actually build up these women and these women businesses? So that's amazing. My final question for you, and then I'm going to open it up to participants. So again, I'll just remind you, if you have any questions, please feel free to either put them in the chat or in a minute, maybe if you want to raise your hand. But preferably if you could put it in the chat, then I could sort of sort through them and read there. So as I ask this question, if anything that Wafai said has sort of you got you thinking about something, please do feel free to ask it. Pop it in the chat. That'd be great. So my final question, and I think you've kind of touched on this, I really wanted to look into sort of what ways you think the public-private partnerships can ensure sustainability and scalability of women's empowerment programs. So you've spoken about the capacity building workshops that are done by the chambers, which is amazing. How do you think other organizations or other people, individuals or groups of people can kind of use similar measures to sort of build capacity in other women, build capacity in other organizations? So just to make sure it's sustainable, I think you've given some great examples of doing that, including just sort of the fair that you talked about where people come and get connected with other people across the world. That's sustainability, and that's amazing. But if you could just touch more directly on that, that'd be amazing. So yeah, just really focusing on sustainability and scalability of women's empowerment programs would be amazing.
Okay, thank you very much. With respect to public-private partnership, we're in very interesting times in the world where nobody survives without partnerships. I mean, you look at the biggest countries in the world, like China. Donald Trump is saying, what can China possibly do? China needs to have a dialogue and talk with us. Let's see how we can possibly reduce that tariff. That's partnership. He's looking at, okay, so many countries, since I slammed this tariff on them, at least 10%, they're looking to talk, they're looking to negotiate. No country is saying, oh, we don't want to work with you, we want to go on our own path, we want to work on our own. Even the United States realizes that it cannot work alone. I mean, no country is an island. If no country is an island, it automatically means no human being is an island and no woman is an island. So public-private partnerships are very, 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 very essential. But at the end of the day, women need to review and understand, do you measure up to the criteria that is needed to enhance or even induce a public-private partnership, a PPP? Nobody's going to come and partner with you out of pity and emotions. Everybody's in business to make money. The first law of business is profit. Everything is driven by profit. I work in the, in the chamber as an acting director general. I'm not here for charity. I'm here to see how your business can profit my organization. It could be profit in kind. It could be profit by way of exposure. It could be profit by me speaking to, a handful of people here, and at the end of the day, they tell me, oh, I want to join the chamber. So to respond to your question very particularly, I'll still use the Bank of Industry as a typical example. So let's say a few women have applied for loans from the Bank of Industry. Will the Bank of Industry continue funding you every year, year in, year out? You're going back to them to request for loan. You have to be able to demonstrate that you have a feasibility plan that's sustainable. I see a lot of young people on this call, and majority of them are from an organization that's called the Young African Leadership Initiative, that's YALI. Alumni or alumnus of YALI are very familiar with the grant writing and grant approval strategy. Whenever you're submitting your grants or you're requesting for funds, the reviewer would always ask questions like, how sustainable is your project? What is your funding strategy for the years to come? How do you intend to ensure that this venture is scalable? So with respect to public-private partnership, what we do is not every business measures up to the criteria of getting introduced to organizations for PPPs. For such business, what we tend to do and what we say to them is you continue building. As much as you can, you continue building, continue trying to generate your clientele. As much as you can, continue trying to link up with other businesses around the chambers, around the network. There's so many business people who are here. Link up with them and see what areas you could work with, what areas you could partner with them. See what areas they could possibly refer you, referrals and recommendations. How could they possibly refer your services? Every income is an income. So you start small and then you scale until you're at the level where, you're referred to or termed big. So for the ones who are able to scale through and are approved for public-private partnerships, at every point in time, you're reviewing their income. How have you fared today compared to yesterday? How many persons identify with your products? What are the reviews? What are the remarks? How many persons are wanting to use your products compared to what was, what was obtainable yesterday? It applies even in the technology sector. So when we talk about small scale businesses, it looks like, it's just farming. It looks like the informal sector is predominantly dominated with the service sector. So there's technology. I've seen so many small scale technology platforms that have gotten funding. I don't want to start highlighting specifically these platforms, but there's been so many platforms that have been funded by Microsoft, funded by Oracle. Amanda's platform, more or less, is also a tech inclined platform. And I'm sure that a lot of global organizations have identified with her over time. So for the PPPs, we'll do our job. I'll do my job by introducing you to a lot of these organizations I feel you qualify and you're capable to interact with. At the end of the day, it is up to you to come up with a strategy on how you think you can sustain, how you think you can scale, and then make sure they're impressed to want to invest in your venture, in your business again. And please, let's not get it wrong. It is not easy. I mean, I work 9 to 5. I'm an employee, right? I don't have a business of my own. I used to have a business of my own while I was working in previous organizations, but right now I'm 100% focused on the job. So when people talk about entrepreneurship, they make it look like it's so simple, it's so easy. I deal with myriads of entrepreneurs in Nigeria and in the US, a lot of them. At least we have direct entrepreneurs under our leadership, 1,000, and at least 6,000 to 7,000 indirect entrepreneurs under our leadership. It is not easy. Entrepreneurship is not something that's easy. So as much as you can, you have to try to build skill, capacity, networking, and don't be scared to look out for opportunities and ask. Write letters to organizations, put together your work plan, send organizations emails, send them letters, ask them where you could possibly collaborate and partner. By the time you've spoken to like 10 organizations, you will be able to find that 1 or 2 organizations who would be involved or interested in what you do. I'd like to say finally, and I'll repeat again, please don't be scared to ask. Don't be scared to seek help. Don't be scared to reach out to people you think can add value to your business and can help you. Thank you.
Thank you. Imagine an imaginary round of applause that everyone's making behind their computer screens, because that's just been so insightful, and every young person just sort of seeking more information, more knowledge on this. I think they've received definitely so much benefit just from the few minutes of hearing you speak. And I love the last point that you just made. Don't be scared to ask questions. Don't be scared to seek help. So if you're on this call and you have questions, please, now is the chance. You might not meet Wafai again soon. So if you have a chance, please definitely ask questions. I've got one question in the chat here from, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, Adepitan. And he's sort of looking at the asking about sort of the initiatives, some of the initiatives that you've mentioned. So sort of organizations where they can seek help. And so they're asking, how do you get access? What kind of platforms would you recommend being subscribed to? Are they sort of newsletters, updates? How can they stay in the loop with any of these good opportunities? And I can see a few people have sort of reacted that they want the answer to this question on that. So yeah, that's to sort of throw you off guard. But if you have any organizations off the top of your head that might sort of be helpful to anyone on this call, please do feel free to mention them now.
Okay, Michelle, am I supposed to respond to that? Giving them options. Oh, there's myriads of options. There's myriads of options. So let me give you a low-hanging fruit. Of all the social media platforms, which is most effective for somebody who is an entrepreneur, somebody who is business-minded? LinkedIn is one of the most effective platforms. So there's every other time, my chamber, for instance, and so many other chambers of commerce, Lagos Chamber of Commerce, name a few, they are consistently posting opportunities. So if you follow some of these pages, if you follow my chamber's page or you follow Lagos Chamber of Commerce, to name a few of them, so many of them, there are events that they're hosting every other time. There are capacity building workshops that are hosting, Nigeria, France, so many other chambers. There are capacity building workshops that are consistently hosting. Some of these meetings are paid meetings. Some of them are not paid. Some of them are streamed live. If you cannot attend physically due to cash constraints, you can always follow some of these proceedings live. Only over the weekend, we had the Minister of Trade and Investment at an event we organized. The chairman and the president of African Finance Corporation was there. As you know, African Finance Corporation are one of the biggest funders of entrepreneurship development in the entire Africa. The president and chairman of the AFC was there. The governor of Zamfara State was there. The president of the Nigerian Export-Import Bank, Nexim, was there. I mean, just to name a few, it was star-studded with a lot of people in the business and corporate sectors. Most times, these events are paid for. But if you're not able to afford to pay to attend some of these events, there are live streaming you could follow online. I also want to give you examples of some others. There's an organization for people in the US called the US Chamber of Commerce. Every other time, US Chamber of Commerce is putting out information on tools that you can engage, what you can do to advance your business. And then as well, if you Google, I mean, Google is my best friend. I say that all the time. Like, I spend the most part of my time on Google than I spend on social media. I don't think I spend up to 3 hours every day on social media, but I spend more than 3 hours on Google. There's absolutely no information you need you cannot find on Google. For every information you need, contacts to this, Google it. For every information you need, access to this, Google it. Sometimes you see emails, and you write to these emails, there might not necessarily be a response. Send reminders. I'm talking about things that I've personally tried and they worked for me over time. So I may not be able to give you specifics. There's something called the Africa CEO Forum, but that's for like people who are high up there on the upper echelon. Now I'm assuming that the majority of people here are like people who are trying to start up their businesses. Very small scale businesses. So I'm not going to sit back here and I start recommending you to listen to Africa Reports or watch, go on Google and start searching for platforms as big as Africa Reports. I'm just talking about very basic platforms. Sometimes I walk into somebody's office or I go somewhere and I see a newspaper. I pick it up and I look through those newspapers. To be very honest, a few opportunities I've gotten in the past were from newspapers. So it's as little as that. You get a newspaper, and sometimes, especially the Business Day newspaper, there's a newspaper called Business Day. You're able to walk into a Business Day newspaper, open up the newspaper, check through the pages. You might find an information that might be important. It might not be so significant. It might be very small, but you never can tell it could help you. And I'd say that for the most of what I'm seeing here, there's mostly young people here. Comb and use LinkedIn as much as possible. Use LinkedIn, reach out to people, send messages, send people random messages that make sense. Requesting for information, if somebody puts out a post about something and you want to get more information about that thing, nothing stops you from sending them a message to tell them, okay, can you give me this article? I'd like to read it. Can you give me this article? I'd like to browse through. Can you tell me more about this? The most anybody could do is say no. And if they say no, it's fine, you move on. But at least you give it a try. So I'd say that for medium and small scale businesses, the opportunities to learn, the opportunities to review what is obtainable is endless. Make Google your best friend. Use LinkedIn as much as you can. Go through the newspapers, much more than you watch television, because a lot of times you don't get this information on TV. Thank you.
One of my favorite points that you just made is you spend less time on social media and more time actually researching. I feel like that's such a challenge for this generation, and that's such facts. If you spend more time trying to develop yourself and researching on the internet, on Google, than we do watching television or sort of on social media, I think that's a really good tip. I think you touched on this towards the end of what you sort of speaking about LinkedIn and reaching out to people, but maybe if you just one or two quick sentences. Neha has asked, what strategies do you have for building relationships with people, since it seems like networking is such an important part of this work? So she's asking, what strategies do you have to build these relationships without it seeming too transactional, where it seems like you just want something from someone? I think you did touch on that already, but if you could just briefly maybe have one or two things to say as we wrap up, that'd be great.
Thank you very much. So I'll respond to your question in 3 ways. The world is changing. The dynamics of the world is changing. Nothing is static. Nobody was born with a formula on how to make friends. Or it's so easy for me to come up today and say, oh, I'm so successful because I did this, I did that. Nobody was given a formula when you were born. You were added 1 into riches, generational wealth, your parents transferred to you, or you had to work hard yourself to make yourself wealthy and successful. There's no manual. So you do what works for you. But these are just general tips and principles. Number 1, believe me, everybody in this world is transactional. I don't care what anybody says. Even the non-governmental organizations are transactional. So an NGO helps you, YALI helps you, and expects you to come out and say, oh, you know, YALI helped me do this, YALI helped me do that. It's more like giving back. You're not paying them back in kind. You're not paying them back in cash, but you're able to go out there and propagate the gospel of YALI to the entire world. That's a transaction. It might not necessarily be a cash transaction. So when you say you don't want to be transactional, every human being in this world is transactional. If I feel like I shouldn't be on this platform, there's nothing I'm giving here, I wouldn't be here. Trust me. For everybody who is coming out to your event and you're calling them on stage to receive award, they're getting the publicity. They're adding it to their CV that they got an award. Now, to respond to you directly, nobody wants to be friends with anybody that cannot benefit from. Nobody wants to be friends with anybody that cannot add value to them. People have to see three things. Number one, it's either they see the direct benefit from you with respect to cash, they're getting money from you, or they're getting ideas, or you're solving a problem. Let me give you a typical example. I like to take pictures wherever I go. I'm a big fan of photography, and I don't hide that. So whenever I go somewhere, pictures tell a story. And somebody walks up to me to say, oh, Wofa, I like your outfit. I want to be friends with you and whatever. Why do you want to be friends with me? You want to be friends with me because you want to take from me, right? I have the right to decline. I have the right to say yes or say no. And I haven't committed any crime, right? And then somebody walks up to me to say, okay, you see me taking a selfie, and the next thing he says, can I help you take a picture? Automatically, you've endeared me to you. So during the last YALI expo we had in South Africa, I knew how many people became friends with me, and I took them directly to the team from Biden's DTA, that's Digital Transformation Africa, just because they took random pictures of me. I was endeared to them, like, you stopped me and you took pictures. Now there are hierarchies in everything, right? There are people who are higher than me as well. I see people who are higher than me. I see commissioners for trade. I meet with ministers, and I'm able to plug into something that they like. Maybe she needs a drink or something. There's nothing like ego or pride. I'm ready to serve you. I'm ready to open the bottle of water and I'm giving it to you. Automatically, it endears me to you. So the truth is, for somebody who is higher than you, try as much as you can to figure out the catchphrase. What is that thing they like? What is that service you think you can offer to them that will make them endear to you? That's number one. Number two, for people who are higher than you, and you want to identify with them, for some reason, maybe you want them to help your career, you want them to give you advice, or genuinely you just want to be seen around them because you think something could come out of that relationship. Never be scared. You never be scared to send them messages. Like, you're standing with them, you can write them a piece of, you can write a note on a sheet of paper. I've received that many times, and I do that to people too. Write it on a sheet of paper. I saw you talking this, I admire you, or you've done this, I like you, and I think you're somebody I could learn from. Even the hardest of human beings has a heart. Nobody would see you sending them a note or trying to compliment them or saying nice things about them, and they'll turn a deaf ear or they'll try to be cold towards you. It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. So a lot of things that kill us in this part of the world, a lot of things that, you know, put us in the same positions for a long time is we not wanting to appreciate or admit when people are above us and they can help us. I always tell people, a person who's above you has nothing to lose. Whether you're close to them or not, they don't lose anything. So sometimes put out notes to people that you like, send them messages, send them texts, don't be scared. The most I can do is say no. Try as much as you can to link up with their soft spot. There's something this person likes. There's something you might do for this person that might endear them to you. And then thirdly, pick their interests. It's never possible that you walk into a gathering or you walk in somewhere and you ask somebody a question in a field that they're vested on and they turn you down. It's not possible. You know you're going to meet with someone. You're meeting with Michelle Cafe, right? And you want to talk to Michelle Cafe, and all you're telling Michelle Cafe is, Michelle, I like your hair and I like your dress. It's okay, it's fine, but it's really not an endearing conversation. You could say things like, oh, I read about you. You must research about the people you're with. I do that a lot. So you tell them, okay, I read this, I read that about you. Your profile is really impressive. So you were in Harvard, or you were in this, or you live in London. How is it in London? I've never been to London, but I'd like to visit London. What's the lifestyle there like? Automatically, you're starting a conversation. Michelle wouldn't turn you down to say, oh, you're not having to London, I'm not interested. No, she might just say one or two things like, oh, London is nice. We're hardworking people. Hopefully someday you come there. You've started a conversation. And next thing you can now say is, okay, can I have your contact card or something? Nobody is an island. Irrespective of how cold anybody is, they warm up to people who show appreciation for their works, their arts, and their crafts. So 3 things. Number one, nobody was born with a manual on how to make friends, how to be warm, and how to endear people to them. So start by identifying the soft spots of people that you can key into. Number 2, Give people genuine compliments. Everybody wants to be complimented, even Donald Trump. Like, you watch a lot of news conferences and Donald Trump would say, a media man is asking him a question, and the next thing he says, I like you. I watched him yesterday, and he said to a media person, oh, this is a fantastic question. You're such a brilliant guy. What's your name? The president of America said that. Everybody wants compliments. Everybody wants to be complimented. Everybody wants to be praised. So as much as you can, give people genuine compliments and use that as, a weapon, or use that as a trap, a route into gaining their attention. Thirdly, ask questions, ask intelligent questions. Before you get to meet people, read a bit about them, ask them questions. Oh, you work with the Chamber of Commerce. What is it like to join the Chamber of Commerce? You work with the Chamber of Commerce. It must be a very challenging job. How do you cope? Automatically, the person just wants to have a conversation. So these are like very few things I could highlight. And lastly, I said, you can send them a note. Write a note, tell them how good they are or how much you want to be close to them, put your signature at the end of it, pass it to them. And I can assure you that they will definitely turn around to look at you to see who is this coming from or where is this coming from. And again, I'll still say, make use of LinkedIn, interact with people, send messages randomly to different people. The most they can do is ignore them. The most they can do is say no, but it's better to try than not to try at all. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Please show us some love with your emojis. I know you're all clapping behind your screens. So helpful. Thank you so much for answering all those questions. I think everybody has learned something. Thank you for those of you who submitted questions. I hope you got more than you sort of expected. It was so much information. So we are very, 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 very grateful. Wow. So now we're on to the second part of our call. And I would love to introduce another amazing woman. We've just had Wafai. Now we've got Amanda Obidike. And I'm so excited to introduce her and to tell you a bit about what she does. Of course, I'm sure this is just a glimpse. And so she'll tell you much more about who she is and sort of the work she does as she's answering these questions. But just as I read her profile, just listen in. And if there's anything that you kind of are thinking, oh, I'm really interested in that, or that job sounds really interesting, start thinking about these things now. And maybe you can ask the question when that time comes. So I'll go straight into it. Amanda is an accomplished nonprofit leader and a data scientist with over 11 years of experience in directing social enterprises, startups, and complex organizations across Africa and Europe and many MENA nations. As the executive director of STEMI Makers Africa, she has led, provided leadership, and prepares the next generation of Africans to be self-reliant problem solvers for Africa's economy. Amazing. Isn't that what we all want? In 2023, she made the Women Who Changed the World list, top 100 women of the future in emerging tech, amongst others. She is a Tech Women Awardee, an initiative of the U.S. Department of State's Bureau of Education Cultural Affairs, and the winner of Innocent Chukwuma's Prize for Women Empowerment and Youth Development. In 2021, she became a Global 20 Goldman Sachs Fellowship winner and emerged winner in the UK's foremost award, the FDM Every Woman in Technology Tech for Good Strategy category. In 2020, she was given the Technology Rising Star Award by the WOC Michigan for successfully championing diversity in technology and innovation for the girl child. She has also been celebrated by Forbes Science as an African changing the future and changing the cultural fabric for young talents to embrace opportunities in science and technology. That was a lot. She's basically amazing, and she's done so much great things. I hope you were able to pick up on some of the individual sort of organizations and awards that she's won that we just mentioned, just so you can really understand the kind of work that she does. She does a lot of work with STEM and tech, so if you're interested in that sort of sector, really dial in, and even if you're not, you can still gain so much. Amanda. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to ask a few questions, and then just as we did with Wafai, I'm going to open it up to the floor to anyone else who has questions. Begin to think about them and put them in the chat. So my first question, and this section is called Increasing Women's Participation in STEM and Addressing the Gender Gap in the Digital World. So with that said, the first question is, with the importance of early exposure to STEM for young girls, what strategies do you think can be adopted to ensure sustainability of these exposure initiatives beyond school programs? And maybe just if there's anyone on the call who doesn't really know what STEM is, maybe you can give just a brief introduction to that before answering the question. But go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Michelle and Wofai. That was an amazing session. I also want to specifically thank Temvert Education Foundation for the invitation. And a lot of times, I'm sorry, out of curiosity, I always tend to look at, what the attendees look like. I see some familiar names, some familiar faces. And I'm so happy that the composition of today's session is not just women. From the names, pardon me, I can see literally 40 to 50% men. So I'm happy that is a very inclusive program. So in response to your question, STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And like I said, I'm really happy that men are here because we're also going to be referring to them because trust me, they are our allies. We can't do without them in as much as we're trying to address that gender divide that exists in technology and STEM. So one key thing that drives sustainability, especially in terms of increasing girls' participation in technology, is what's one thing that we lack in the continent, and that's access to role models. Growing up, we didn't really have so much a better space in schools where we have like career counseling or women that we can easily access, even if we see them, like I remember when we are watching the news, we see Ruth Benamesa up here, you are just fantasized about how she reads the news, but you can't even access her. And even if you do, what do you want to tell her? So access to role models has always posed a problem. And this is something that should be infused into our everyday lives. Now, when we say role models, it mustn't be women that are well established in different spaces in technology. No. Wofa, you can be a role model. Michelle, you can be a role model. Tayo, I'm sure you have several mentees that are, looking up to you. So it's not until we have all that placard and we have like that open call. Some people may be shadowing us, like it's not like, I won't say stalking, maybe they're going through your social media, they're seeing what you post because they are inspired. So it's something that we have seen lack, as a thing. Now, I'll give you a real life example of something that just happened last week on Saturday. We had this program called GASA. It's an acronym for Girls Accelerating Sustainable Action. And that program, it was a way of amplifying people that have amazing community initiatives. And trust me, there were university students, whether they were undergraduates or graduates or underemployed, that are doing amazing in their communities, so they just took up that initiative. Now, guess what? We had that open call and the prize money is just a token. It's not even up to $1,000. We had over 300 people apply for such a program. Now, here's a catcher. One person has to be a winner. But in as much as most of these ones did not emerge winners, they still wanted to join the webinar because we brought in 2 key women that are expert reviewers in probably, one of them is an expert reviewer in ECOWAS, the other one is an expert reviewer of grants in Commonwealth Office. Now, like I said, they didn't win, but they just wanted that platform to hear from women that are doing amazing, women that have broken these barriers. And we did that. We took a survey and we realized that a lot of times they don't even want resources. They just want someone that can actually tow them in the right path. If they are missing something, they want to have some level of direction. Because like I always say, we should be free to dream, we should be free to excel. But a lot of times in the process of being free to dream or being free to excel, we should be accountable. So access to role models has always been a problem. And in terms of driving sustainability, we need to transition having role models to designing sustainable programs that can harness young women and girls. Now, when we say harness young women and girls, it's not just about what their talents are, it's about taking, like, being every step of the way as they transition. We have seen several times how we've had incubator programs, women, girls, even men join. And it's not just about that program. We get to actually ask, okay, what's going on after this program? How has this training or how have these skills helped you to be self-reliant, helped you to be independent on your own? And a lot of times, even as much as they are accelerating, they still have hurdles. So where sustainability comes in is where we have, like Wofai said, is private-public partnerships. So it's one thing for you to have these initiatives running out of school, but it's another thing for you to have key drivers, key actors, whether in organizations, whether in the government, whether it's individuals that want to pay forward, how they can also contribute to making sure that, these kind of programs live long. Then another point is, because this is where the men also come in, is collaboration is the new competition. So in as much as we are trying to accelerate women, we should also understand that men play a very key role. The first person that taught me how to code was a guy. He was as ignorant as I was. Let me use the word ignorance. But he just didn't want me to give up. He just didn't want me to fail. So he rather, encouraged me. So what does that tell you? And Nelson Isa is here. Nelson Isa, for example, is one kind of person that anytime I'm really stuck or something is going on in STEM, no matter where he is, he's in Kazakhstan, I always get to dial him, oh, Nelson, we need this. I can actually reach out to a woman. But what am I trying to say? I'm saying that in as much as we are trying to drive gender inclusion, we should also understand that there are certain modalities, there are certain sectors, and there are certain models which happen to be community, which happen to be men, which happen to be non-profit organizations and governments that, can contribute towards this sustainability.
Thank you. That's so helpful. And just thinking about how important teamwork is. And I think Wafai sort of echoed that same sentiment about we aren't an island. If we ever want to bring all of us forward, that means all of us need to be together and we need to find as many partnerships as possible. So I think that's such an encouragement for, I think sometimes our generation can think, I'll do it on my own, I'll do my own LinkedIn, I'll content create, I'll do this. But actually we need each other. So that's so important. And yeah, how everyone can be a role model, so, so important. I would move on to the next question, which I'm really interested to hear your answer on. And it's, from your experience, you've shared so much with us and you have such an extensive experience that I read earlier. What do you find are the biggest barriers that still prevent women from advancing in STEM careers? And how do you think these can be addressed?
Okay, so I would say something that maybe we don't often hear, but that's the reality, and we even have a data that backs that up. I would have said, okay, if you fall in this line, maybe you should just raise your hand or say something on the chat box. But here's the question: how many of us grew up maybe liking maths and suddenly there was just this disconnect? You just don't like maths, and the reason could be, oh, the teacher is not just teaching you well, or you just don't understand it. It has been a commonality. Now, what am I trying to arrive at? These barriers actually are from the grassroots. And when I say it's from the grassroots, I mean our instructional pedagogy. What is it like? You go to advanced countries, for example, you see how a teacher translates subjects like science or like math because there are resource tools. But in Nigeria, we don't even have a very interactive blackboard. We are still using chalks. Everything is still not advanced. And now, what does that tell you? It shows that there are certain resource tools that are not even inspiring people or young girls to delve into a STEM career or STEM education. So what is that problem? We have a leaky pipeline in our education system whereby teachers do not know how to translate these subjects that are very, very practical to learners. And at the end of the day, you begin to lose them. I for one thing, I grew up liking math, but somehow, somewhere, a teacher just comes to the class, he just jots everything down. Do you have any question? No, continue. And that repeats every day. And then you just the next thing is all man to himself. So if you try to learn it and you don't get it, fine. The highest maybe you could always get in class is a C or a D, and the cycle goes on. But what am I trying to say? This has been a problem. We had a survey, and we conducted that survey in Kano. We conducted that survey in Kweneng, Botswana. We conducted that survey also in Mwanza, Dar es Salaam, that is in Tanzania. And we found out that students actually said that in as much as they really want to have this understanding, they just do not know how to flow with their teachers. And what did we do? We tried to say, okay, how can we actually upskill these teachers? But now, it did not stop there, because we also now took another survey and we realized that, trust me, 7 in 10 teachers do not want to be teachers. They are either being teachers because that's just the available job, or I can't just, they had aspirations. But now that's where the problem is, because who said being a teacher is not a noble job? Being a teacher should not be a second option. In America, it's a thing of pride. In as much as you see someone that is a teacher, they tell you thank you for your service. You see someone that is in the army, they tell you thank you for your service. But in Nigeria, if you say you're a teacher, I don't even know the kind of look that they give you. So there is already that stereotype in them. And because of that, no professional development, no capacity building in that space. And at the end of the day, they go to the class demoralized, demotivated, and they don't pass it on. So what am I trying to say? This problem is a grassroots and an inherent problem. So it's until we try to address it, we try to motivate teachers, that's when things can be better. There's one very key man that I always give as an example. He's one of too many educators that we had trained in Lagos. Nelson may know him. He was one of our first recipients for the first cohort that we did for educator training. We trained him on, STEM, instructional pedagogy, and robotics. He didn't stop there. He kept on following us, like always wanting to know what updates, what kind of resource tools he can harness. So we're just giving him resource tools. We didn't even know what he was up to. Then after 6 months, he told us that, okay, he wants to go for a teacher exchange program in the USA. Can we write a recommendation letter for him? I was like, what? I would love to do that. And I did it for him. And in 3 months, Mr. Larry got a teacher exchange fellowship opportunity in the USA for 4 years. And the next thing I asked him, I was so happy. And I said, oh, Mr. Larry, I'm happy for you. After 4 years, I hope you will come back and do it. He said, no, Amanda, I'm not coming back. Oh. And I was weak, because why? I felt like it's a good thing for him to upscale himself and come back, but to him, he doesn't want to come back to a society that still does not appreciate teachers. And trust me, up till today, he has even taken his kids, he's taken his wife there. I see their status and I am so amazed. Am I happy for him? Yes. But in a way, it's not sustainable for us, because if 1 in 3 educators we train and you keep going to the USA and you don't come back, at the end of the day, I am fueling and empowering the US community, and I'm not doing anything for myself. So what am I trying to say? Policies need to be addressed. We need to have a mindset shift in terms of upscaling these educators, because at the end of the day, they serve as role models in accelerating and, igniting, increasing the participation of girls and as well boys in STEM.
Wow, someone said insightful, and that's so insightful and so interesting. I just love what you said just at the end there about we need a mindset shift. And I think that's so true in many countries, not just Nigeria, across the African continent, where there needs to be a cultural shift and an understanding that teachers are actually the bedrock of our society. But policy needs to put them there, sort of highlight that they need to have the right environment for teaching. They need to have all the access. They need to have sort of all the school books, the training, the tools to really equip them to deliver their jobs properly, and they build up the next generation. So that cultural mindset needs to change, and I think that would be such a drastic difference. But thank you, that's such a good insight about sort of the brain drain in Africa to the US, to the UK. It's so common, and we need to find a way to sort of build up Africa again. So that's so insightful. Thank you so much for that. My final question, and that means that it's almost time for the public to ask questions. So again, now's the opportunity. If you have any questions in mind, begin to put them in the chat, please. And it'd be great to hear from you. My final question is, how do you think we can achieve equal access to STEM education for girls who live in rural communities? And I find it interesting that you mentioned sort of the example of having an old chalkboard and not being able to use interactive boards to sort of fuel learning. And that can be just for mathematics, but now we think about things like IT, where really that practical element is so needed and you need to fiddle with the computer and all that kind of stuff. So with that in mind, how can we make sure that young girls and young boys, but specifically girls living in rural areas, can still access that STEM education? What are your insights on that? We'd love to hear.
Okay, yes, so thank you so much, Michelle. So, most of the responses I've been giving has been first-hand responses due to the work that we do. So amongst programs that we do, one program that really strikes me, and we have seen the tremendous impact, is how we have created STEM clubs in these schools. So we first let them know that, internet is not required because we know that there's a data infrastructural problem. That's one thing. So we don't make it look too voluminous, or we don't make it look too difficult. We just make them understand that, hey, you just need the 4 C's. And what are the 4 C's? Collaboration, creativity, communication, and critical thinking. So we always get to sensitize them in terms of working in groups. And now when they work in groups, they create friendship amongst fellow girls, friendship also among their fellow colleagues who happen to be boys. We have seen them do amazing projects whereby some have done projects that, did a generator that is powered by urine. They've done projects that use like an IoT to find and, eradicate pests in a farmland. All of these things did not really require our presence. All we needed was to say, how can you people work together for a common goal? And not just only a common goal, but how can you address present challenges, community challenges that you are facing in your school? I'll give you one clear example of how one thing that happened. There was this school that we went to. It was International Day of Women and Girls in Science, and we had Nima. Nima she's an intern in NASA. She's just such an inspiration. So we connected her to the girls in this school. Of course, she joined online, and she was talking about innovation, what they can build. And some people that are Igbos here will actually agree with one thing I want to say. A girl asked a question in that group and said, there is this leaf we call bitter leaf in Nigeria. We call it onubu. So the leaf, you get to wash and wash and wash just to take out the bitterness before the stress is just so much about washing that leaf. They call it bitter leaf. Now, she asked a question, a very, very surreal question. She asked her and said, there's a problem that she sees her mom face literally every 2 weeks. The habit of washing this particular leaf just to eat. And the next thing is, when she asked that question, everybody in the class started laughing at her. And I was like, why are you laughing? This is a problem. And I felt like, in fact, for the first thing, you people should first of all applaud her, because I have never even thought about it. I have accepted that problem as a die-long problem, that till I die, there will be no machine that can wash that leaf. But she asked a very cool question, and that was the most intelligent thing that she ever did. And the lady from the USA responded to her and said, yes, you can actually use a microcontroller. Or before that, have you tried putting the leaf in a pillowcase, tying it up and putting it in a washing machine? Because when that pressure gets to, go round, it gets to like contrast and try to take out the bitterness, But now she's trying to provide that solution. And the next thing I told the speaker was like, how many kids in this class actually do have a washing machine? So what am I trying to say? In as much as all of these ideas are conceived or all of these problems are there for solutions to be preferred, it requires collaboration. And we can only do that by encouraging peer-to-peer learning. We can do that by encouraging mini clubs and people even in yearly different spaces serving as volunteers, because you serve as volunteers, you are going there, you are visiting them, you're asking questions, you are responding. You don't know that you are serving as a role model. At the end of the day, 5 years, 10 years from now, they will just say, oh, a particular person inspired me, a particular Segun Olatunde inspired me. And Segun Olatunde is probably somewhere and doesn't even know that his presence really, really impacted someone. So that's just the little that we can do. But I'm just trying to say that this effort does not require so much resources. It just requires a sense of community and togetherness, in inspiring these young girls to accelerate and succeed in STEM, and also boys. So thank you, Michelle.
Sure, no, thank you. Definitely, excuse me, so interesting, so much insight. And I think it's really helpful to have your first-hand experience. So you've sort of seen on the ground what are girls experiencing, what are the challenges. I think that really helps us sort of paint a picture. If you've never sort of experienced that, you never understand that. It's been so helpful having you. So thank you very, very much for your time and your dedication, taking your time to answer these questions. We do really appreciate it. Again, I'm sure everyone's giving you a round of applause behind their screens. I know I am. So again, I'll remind everyone you can pop your questions in the chat. I've got one that I would just like to read. So sorry to put you on the spot, but there's going to be a question here from Adejare. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Asking a few questions, but I'll pick one that I think is really interesting. And it says, how did you train yourself to stay confident in spaces where you were often the female minority, or you're often a minority? How do you train yourself to not want to run away from those spaces where, sort of, I'm going to be the only person of color, the only Nigerian, the only woman, the only person from a rural background, the only, maybe some people from the only poor background, socioeconomic challenges. How do you make yourself resilient and sort of force yourself to not shy away from that difference, but actually stand in that gap? I would love to hear your response on that.
Yes, thank you so much, Adejare. As tough as it may seem, the first rule of thumb is don't run. Don't run. On a normal day, whether you're a man or a female, a male or a female, the world is really dominating. And it's quite unfortunate that people get to read or determine your aura or your confidence before they get to size you up. So when you come in timid and they see that you are timid, that's the kind of atmosphere or that's the kind of energy that they will give you. I've worked in a space where I served as a general manager somewhere, and before I even came into that role, the founder of the initiative told me that you are going into this particular organization and there are 3 things that are dangerous. So it's better for you to start clearing your mind now. He told me, number 1, you are the youngest, because I served as a GM in a place. He told me that number 1, you are going to be the youngest person in that space. Number 2, you are the only female. And number 3, you are in a community where they don't really understand women and influence, like women having power. And when he told me that, I felt like you just want to punish me, because why are you putting me in this kind of situation where, but the reality was, it was one thing for him to advise it, and another thing for me to experience it. The first 3 months was one of the horrible times of my life because it started digging to me. But I felt like it's the energy, like they say, garbage in, garbage out. I started to see how to not become overpowering necessarily, but beginning to let people know that outside of my gender, outside of my age, I can do this job, and treat me as a professional that I am. It took a while for people to really understand, but that was one of the very, very good experiences of my life. So one thing I would say in summary is don't run, because when you run, you will live to fight it another day. You may even have an experience that it will even put you down the box, and you don't want that. So it's and continuously showing people that yes, even if you are this, you are also vulnerable, you are also open to learning. So it's not like I always have it all. That way it shows that you are more accessible and that you are very, very open-minded.
Don't run. That's what I got. That's the most important thing. And I love that. Don't run away. It's so easy to be scared of scary situations where you're the only one. But I love how, thank you for sharing that being so vulnerable to say, actually, it was quite tough in the first 3 months. It wasn't easy. You didn't just show up and, you got it all together and you made your LinkedIn post. Like, no, it was actually hard, but you stayed the course and you did well because of it. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to ask another question that kind of follows on from what you sort of spoke about staying in even when it's difficult. What role has resilience played in your journey, especially during moments of failure or rejection?
Wow, resilience. Okay, let me talk about Wafai said something. When she was saying it, I was laughing. She was talking about, this present administration, because this present administration really hit me hard in the USA. As at last year, we were so happy. I mean, we badged quite a lot of federal awards with maybe like 6 to 7 countries, and we're looking forward to hosting, these projects and working with them. And, before you know it, I'm sorry, I'm somehow Republican. So, but when it's happened and they were like, okay, they're going to either be terminating projects that are aligned to DEI, anything that you're doing that is relating to women and girls, we're no more interested. I and the team were very devastated, because so much effort was being put towards ensuring that we do this project with them. And, we're already looking at how we're already bringing in key actors. The ministries in different of these countries wanted to come on board. It was a big deal for us. Then imagine going back to them and saying, no, this project can't work anymore because the primary funders are resisting the thematic area. It was a trying time for me, but the funny thing about it was I did something that they least expected. We went back to them and said, we're going to be fine-tuning this project. I'm not going to be saying no to these communities. Our image is at stake, is down the line. I can't also look these governments in the eye and say that we're not doing it again, because it looks like we are truth breakers. Here's the thing, we're going to make it more inclusive. We're going to make it more elaborate and more open. It's going to be strictly on meritocracy, not because they are women or not because they are from a particular kind of social class. And it was a very big debacle, I won't lie to you, but we kept on sending them messages. I kept on, reaching out to whoever that needed to be reached out to. And it got to a time whereby even in this the SAM, the agency, they already knew my name, that I wasn't taking no, because I just couldn't take it. Not just because of it's an organizational thing, but I had seen us doing this and doing it differently. And good enough, they reached out to us maybe like 2 months ago and said, hey, we're doing this on these notes. And, you have to bring in the report. These are the conditions, these are the formalities, these are the, these are the new clauses that you have to abide by and all of that. So what am I trying to say about that? A lot of times it's a usual thing for the door to be slammed against us. It's a usual thing for us to knock and, no response. It's also a usual thing for people to deny or to, how will I say this? Certain kind of expectations that we have of people or organizations to fall short is a very typical thing. It's something that we commonly see, but it's never the end. It's always something that we even say, for every one rejection, we are putting in 2 more to another initiative or to another organization, because at the end of the day, we have to keep afloat. We have to ensure that whoever that we are cascading these impacts to, which are the communities, have this, these resources that we are sourcing from international organizations.
That's so interesting. That's such an interesting insight. And I hope everyone was taking notes at that part and really just understood how determined you were. I think sometimes we can get stuck in our ways and be like, if it's not happening, then I guess there's nothing we can do. We just have to pay the consequences of this. But that must have been a really difficult decision to really kind of change everything about what it was going to be to make sure that you got, the yes result that you wanted. So that's really, I think people can learn a lot from that, and just being determined, but being so flexible and being able to think on your feet and push in the right direction. So Eunice has asked one question, and I think it's kind of similar in terms of kind of looking at resilience and getting up after you've been sort of pushed down. But if you have any insights on that, I think it'd be great to share. So Eunice asks, have you ever been in a situation where you felt in over your head as a woman in influence in STEM, and how did you navigate it? I think you've given one really good example, but if you have any points that you can help Eunice, and I'm sure others on the call with, we would love to hear.
Okay, yeah. So I think it's a very, very personal question. And I say that because it has a lot to do with accountability. A lot of times you are doing XYZ, it seems like, okay, you really know what you are doing, and people actually resonate with the work that you are doing. But in the process of all of I don't want to call it noise or distraction, it's always very easy to lose a grip or hold of what you are doing. So a lot of times I always hold myself accountable, whereby I get to ask like questions. I get to, when I say questions, I mean across my team, or also show some level of vulnerability, if I can use that word, because it makes everyone understand that you don't even have life all put together. You are also still trying to, navigate through. It's just like when Semi said something about Yali and like, oh, he inspired, and I was like, what? Me? And I was shocked, because I was like, as at that time in my life, my head is, I don't even know what's going on with my life. And this is someone that is already saying, oh yeah, you encouraged me and all of that. So what does that tell you? There are times where we don't even have everything all perfect and figured out, but a lot of times we also, need to go back to the scoreboard and say, am I really going in line with my vision or my goal? Are people really impacted? Am I stepping on toes? Is there anything that I need to work on? That is the certain level of accountability. So Eunice is a very, very key question. And like I said, it's a very personal thing, but it's something that I always get to put myself in check periodically.
Thank you. That's such a practical response and such a really practical way, excuse me, to sort of keep in check. Is just ask people around you to also be able to answer questions and ask questions, and just being open. So thank you so much for sharing that. Oh, guys, thank you for your questions. They were amazing. Everybody show Amanda some love with your emojis and comments. We're so grateful that you took the time to come and speak to everyone here. It's been absolutely amazing. People already say thank you in the comments. You've done so much information and insight. So thank you. And then again, thank you to Temitayo for putting this all together. I'm going to pass back to Tayo now, and he's going to give us some closing remarks. But yes, it's been amazing. Both Wafai and Amanda, thank you so much. Tayo, over to you.
All right, sincerely, I'm very short of words. This has been a very amazing event. From our moderator and the speakers and also the participants. I'm very, very happy that our eyes are actually open to a lot of things. So just a little addition to what Ms. Wofi and Amanda have said so far, especially when it comes to networking. And I'm happy to say that it's through networking that I've been able to meet these people that are actually speaking in this event. Right from Ms. Wofi, I met her like a long time ago, many years ago, and also Amanda Vidiketu. We met in a homecoming session in Badagry, Lagos. And is it Badagry? Yeah, I think it was in Keja, Lagos. And also Michelle, we connected last year. So that's actually the power of networking. And I will also encourage everyone to, network. Even in this event, look at people in this event, look at people that you can actually network with. Attend events, attend programs that you can meet people and network with. Okay, for example, now I went to a program recently, it was last week, and it was during the program, someone even walked up to me that, that he wants to tell me something about what he does in the UK. And obviously what he's doing in the UK is what we need as an organization. That's also the essence of attending events and also networking. Thanks so much for all the participants here. sincerely, we have participants from different parts of the world. Looking at the list, we see participants from US, Indian, Mexico, different parts of the world. This is a very amazing international event. Thank you so much, Michelle, for the amazing moderation. You've been so very, very awesome. And thank you to our speakers, Ms. Wofai and Ms. Amanda, for taking your time to speak to us, for sharing us some secrets, because these are secrets that you share with us. Thanks to our team at Temvert Foundation. Special thanks to Abdul Rashid Adepiton for hosting this program. He has been so very supportive in making sure that this actually comes to life. And also our team members and volunteers, thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Just for an information, our foundation, obviously, we continue to advocate for gender equality, equal access to quality education. And if you think you want to be part of us, if you think you want to be part of what we do, we are very free, they're open to any collaboration. If there's a project we are going to do now, after this event, we'll start the planning is part 10,000. And that project, we are going to distribute 10,000 parts to students, most especially in undeserving communities, so that we can actually increase their, when we talk about the issue of menstrual poverty, it is a very serious issue. It makes students, especially girls, most importantly girls, make them to become absent in classes, the stigma and everything. So we are trying to raise awareness against menstrual poverty. It's not really loud out there. So it's a particular project we want to do. So if you think you have any input, you can give us. If you think you want to do any collaboration, we are very open. I'll be dropping our email in the chat box and the phone number. So do reach out to us. And I really appreciate everyone for taking your time to attend this event. Thank you so much, everyone. And I wish everyone a blessed time. Thank you so much. Bye.